What is up guys, Morton here from SteamFirst.com with a review for the 2D platformer Canyon Capers, developed by Crazy Moo Games and released April 25th, 2014 on Steam for $7. At first glance, Canyon Capers seems pretty generic. You control some random guy and you're wandering around collecting treasures. It's very retro in that sense, as your only objective is to collect everything on each level and then get to the exit. There's really no story, but it's hard to tell a story when all you do is walk around and pick things up off the ground. That doesn't mean the game is bad though, and it actually does some things quite well. The controls are very solid. I didn't play with a gamepad, but I've heard those controls are good as well. As far as gameplay goes, all the mechanics were pretty tight, with the exception of killing enemies. The only way to get rid of enemies is to jump on them, and sometimes I felt like I jumped right through them, or I jumped from below and still managed to hit them on top. It didn't really make sense. But to be honest, I usually just avoided the enemies. They respawn shortly after you kill them, and I never really noticed getting hit by them did anything anyway. You take some damage, but it doesn't really matter because you'll never die to them anyway, and when you get hit by them, it gives you a few seconds of invulnerability so you can run past more enemies without any danger. The difficulty curves very nicely as well. You start off with relatively small stages and fewer collectibles, and they slowly increase stage size and add more collectibles. You have to collect everything on the stage in order to open the exit, and you only have a certain amount of time. In the beginning, the timer is pretty unimportant, but after you get a ways into the game, you'll notice yourself running very low on time, especially if you get lost or go the wrong way on one of the bigger stages. Unfortunately, things do start to feel similar over the levels. New obstacles and things are added, but running around collecting the same things on every stage gets a bit dull. Luckily, they have multiple characters and all of them are a little different. They all control the same, but they each have a special thing that makes them unique. So one character can collect coins from farther away, and another has an arrow pointing towards the exit, things like that. And they're interesting and can be useful in different situations. I think my biggest issue with the gameplay was the lack of any sort of attack. It would have been a lot more fun if the enemies were actually a threat and you had some sort of ranged attack to hit them. But I never felt like I was in any danger aside from getting hit by an enemy in midair and falling into a pit of lava. Nothing was ever going to kill me. And I couldn't jump on the enemies that fly around because there isn't a way to get above them all the time. Gameplay gets a 3.5 out of 5. It works and it's fun for the most part, but it can get a little repetitive and there's nothing particularly challenging about it. Visually, the game looks good. The gems and coins and all the enemies and backgrounds are fairly well detailed. It's nothing exceptional, but it's certainly not bad either. The graphic style actually fits the game very well in my opinion. It's kind of cartoony, but so is the game. Graphics get a 4 out of 5. They're nice to look at, and I think they did a good job overall. Obviously, they aren't super high resolution, but I wouldn't expect them to be, and the game would be really weird if they were. The sounds were pretty good as well. The background music was good, although it was a little repetitive after a while. The sound effects for picking up all the different collectibles were nice and fitting. The only sounds I found to be weird were for killing the enemies. They were just kinda strange. But I've never jumped on a snake's head before, so I don't really know what that sounds like. Perhaps they know something I don't. Sound gets a 4 out of 5. There's not really much to say, my only complaint is the repetitiveness of the soundtrack. Now, Canyon Capers is a game that's meant to be played repeatedly, so the real question is it worth being played multiple times? To collect everything on each stage and get the highest score possible, you'll need repeated tries at all the stages. Now, this might get boring, but there are a lot of secrets in this game, so even if you play a stage you've already played a few times, you might find new secrets, so it'll still be pretty interesting, even after you've played through everything once. There's also a large amount of achievements to try and get, so you can certainly invest a lot of time looking for all the secrets and completing all the achievements. Replayability gets a 4.5 out of 5. You can definitely spend a lot of time trying to get all the collectibles and finding the fastest ways to complete each stage for the most points. Overall, Canyon Capers gets a 4 out of 5. It's a fun, although somewhat repetitive, 2D collection platformer with little to complain about. It's a good throwback to retro platformers in a time where the market is flooded with puzzle platformers, and it can easily last you a number of hours if you're looking to complete everything and find all the secrets that the game has to offer. Even a single playthrough will take a few hours, without going back and completing all the achievements. And for only $7, a game that can last hours is certainly a good value. So if you're looking for a collection game, then Canyon Capers is certainly a good place to start.